I want to take a few minutes today and review the materials regarding the final project. Now, let's start with the module. The module itself, as you can see, is found in Canvas. Once you hit the module, you'll go all the way down to the final project. When you click on the final project, you will see a number of items. You will see the description. You will also see the professional standards. All of the professional standards. We'll be using standard 9. And then you'll see 5-year budgets for high schools and elementary. You'll see sample budgets there. And then you'll see the templates that you'll use. But let's first start with the outline itself of the final project. Now, there are 3 distinct elements to this final project for ED 591. The first part deals with the budget narrative. That's where you are going to write a narrative about the rationale for a 5-year financial budget for your school. Now, you can use your school if you find that that's more advantageous, or you can create a new school all on your own, call it what you'd like, but you have to basically give some information about the school. As you can see here, what you're trying to do is write a narrative where you will show, 1, your school's mission. Why is that important? Because everything that you do in your budget should reflect your mission and your vision. Now, the next thing that you'll do that will be a part of that narrative are the budget assumptions. What are your assumptions about everything from tuition, staffing, enrollment, capital needs projects, all of those things? What are those assumptions that you're making? If you're going to start new programs, you also need to include those in the budget assumptions. The budget process, what process will you use? In the textbook, they talked about various processes. I'd ask you to look back over that and decide which process you feel is best for you and design a timeline for the budget process. You need to indicate which individuals will be involved in the budget process at every level. Again, from gathering of the information to who will ultimately make the final decisions. The use of the data. What data will you need to collect in order to create your budget? So you have to identify those areas of data that you'll need to collect. The sources of revenue. That means your tuition, any kind of outside revenue from fundraising, from advancement. If you get aid from the diocese, if you get aid from your parish, all those things need to be included. Your salary increases and your compensation philosophy. That also means that you need to come up with an explanation of what your compensation philosophy would be. Again, that is in regards to not just the individual salaries, but also in terms of benefits. We've talked about that throughout the semester. The salary increases, what are those? That basically means coming up with a salary scale, or if you do not use a salary scale, what is the rationale for assigning pay to an individual? That needs to be explained. What are your enrollment projections? And what are they based upon? What are your staffing projections? How many teachers will you need in each grade level? What about staffing? What about support staff? What about maintenance staff? All of the people involved in your school. What about capital improvements? Do you need a new boiler? Do you need to put new smart boards or new televisions in your classroom? Do you need to have new air conditioning units? If there are any capital improvement plans, you need to identify what they are and why they would be needed, and any new additional educational programs. What about the use of technology for the administration and operational planning? as well as daily operations. What are you going to use? What software are you going to use? If your school currently uses a particular software, that's fine. Indicate that. If not, maybe you want to be using QuickBooks, or you're going to create your own spreadsheet. But you need to identify how technology is going to play a role in the creation of your budget. Methods of communicating with your faculty, staff, parents regarding the financial operations of the school. That means, how are you going to inform people about the budget process, and then ultimately about the budget and tuition increases. Compliance with local, state, and federal regulations for sound management of the school resources. What are you doing to make sure that you are in compliance? Again, in the course we talked about audits, we talked about reviews such as that. Monitoring and evaluation of school resources. How are you going to monitor the budget to ensure that the budget is a real living document, and that you'll see where you're over or where you're under and what adjustments need to be made? That's the first part. That's the budget narrative. The second is actually the 5-year budget itself. Okay, again, in the second part, you can either use your own school if you want, and I have no problem with you doing that, just let me know, or create your own school using one of the templates. If you're talking about elementary school, I was talking about 600. Now, maybe you want to change that and say, I want to have 900 students. That's fine. Just indicate that in your narrative. With a high school, we're looking at a school of about 1,000. Now, the one thing with your budget numbers, they should reflect what you have said in the narrative. So that's one of the things that I'll be looking for. Now, let me go for just a second to the budget samples. Let me start with the elementary school and walk you through that for just a brief moment. Now, in this, this is what you will see. Now, this is what your budget should ultimately look like. Okay, let me enlarge this for a minute. Okay, now I've just put different years up there. Feel free to change those, that's not a problem. But in this sample, you'll see net tuition. You'll see student activities, parish subsidies. Those are the sources of your revenue and expenses. Now, for the elementary school, it's a little bit different, a little bit less. Okay, so you'll have these major categories. And then at the end, you'll see total expenses, and then you should see a net profit or loss. Okay, if you're doing a deficit, in your narrative, you have to explain why that deficit's occurring and how you plan on paying for that. Now, one of the things that's really important is down here at the very bottom. Okay, now you will see forms like this. You must fill in these sub-sheets, okay, these worksheets, okay, because here you're going to put down what past 3 years of baptisms in your parish. Why is that important? That's important because what we want to do is say, okay, if there's 99 baptisms this year, when you're looking at projecting your budget, how many of those are you capturing in your school? How many of those children who are baptized in your parish actually go to the school? Important. Again, so you'll see this number in red there, that automatically fills in. Okay, and then you'll see enrollment. Again, you'll see, now, if your school doesn't have a preschool 3, just put 0, okay? And again, total number of classes. You need to decide how many classes will you have. Okay, now in this case, it says 8. Now what do you notice? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so the total number of classes is 8. Oh, wait a minute. What's wrong with that? Okay, I didn't include these, all right? So you have to make sure of that. And then it'll tell you your average class size. This area in here is formula driven. So the cells in red are formula driven. Okay, you'll see enrollment trends. Same way. What are the enrollment trends? Okay, we talked about that earlier in the semester. You're looking at tuition. Now, in this particular case, you'll see diocesan students, first child. Now, maybe yours doesn't have that. Okay, and that's the case. Just leave that section blank and only deal with, if your school doesn't have rates for in parish or out of parish, that's fine. Okay, but again, you'll see the tuition. In some cases, it's different for each year. You'll see staff. Again, these are the number of teachers. There's one principal, there's administrative staff, one principal. Now, in this case, there's no assistant principals. Guidance counselors, this school doesn't have one. There's only one librarian, one nurse. And then they have these specialists. Now, if you want to change these, feel free to do that. But you'll get the idea. And here, again, what you'll see is we want you to assign. Now, some of you will look at this and say, oh my goodness, how am I going to know what somebody makes? Okay? What I'm asking you to do is, this is your school. You can put what you think would be appropriate. You don't have to go running to the administration of your school and asking them to give you people's salary. You can make this up. The main key here is that it is consistent with your narrative. And then you'll see these other segments over here. FICA, medical, dental. Now, what do you pay? Now, in this case, this teacher, they're not claiming any. So you're not, because they've already decided they're not taking any of the benefits. But you have to put retirement, life insurance, unemployment compensation, workers' compensation. Okay? And then you'll see projected salaries. Okay? So what you're doing is the numbers will automatically fill in here, and then you will have to determine what percent of increase you want for the next few years. Okay? Now, you'll see projection totals here. So that gives it by area. So professional staff, in this school, in this particular case, there's $115,000. And you'll see how much is being spent. Okay, retirement, $54,000 in here. Here there's an area for capital, so you fill that in. And then again, you'll see this document here completed. Now, what I want to do is, for the elementary schools, we'll go and take a look at this and see what the blank plan is, so that you know what you'll be filling in. Okay, sorry, wrong one. The elementary school or middle school. So this is the blank one that you will fill out, okay? And you'll see these different areas here, okay? Now, you'll see here that I've also added some areas. Substitute salaries, okay? The sample was just to give you an idea about some numbers and what it might look like. But again, you'll see things in here. If conferences and travel, what about that? Now, again, same thing. You'll see these areas at the bottom that you need to fill in. Major technology sheets. So again, you get the general idea about what you need to do. For the high school, I'll just go to the blank one for a minute, but you can go and take a look at this online. It's a same thing, except a little bit different categories, because this is more of how a high school will be set up. It's a little bit different. So for any of you that are currently in elementary schools and you want to do the high school, feel free. You can do either one, regardless of what level you teach or work in right now. But again, same thing here, projections. Make sure that you fill all of these out. That's really important. Now, let me go back a second to the final project. Now, so we've talked about the first part is the narrative. Second part is actually filling out the template. And then the third is the institutional advancement plan. So in this section, you're asked to create a 5-year plan for institutional advancement in your school. That means a statement of purpose. Now, let me make sure that this is clear. This does not mean that you are going to just keep the cookie drive or the pizza drive, or just rely on your parents' association. I want you to create for your school a plan. Okay? What do you want to do? Now, an advancement plan, as you're learning, talks about fundraising and marketing. How are you going to market your school? And how is your fundraising going to kind of complement that? Because oftentimes we talk about advancement being friend-raising as well as fundraising. So what's the purpose of your advancement effort? What are you trying to accomplish? A statement of purpose for the annual fund and a major gift campaign. So notice, there are 2 parts here. One, I want you to create, even if you don't have it right now, I want you to create an annual fund program. And I want you to pick out some major gift campaign. That might be, we need to get new iPad Pros or new iPads for all of our students. Or we need to create an endowment. Or we need to create funds to get new desks for the classrooms, or put in a new cable TV system, whatever it would be. You decide that. So the annual fund should be, so you should be trying to raise $100,000, okay? Now, some people say, well, there's no way I can do that. I want you to really think about how you could do that. Now, maybe some of that might be foundations. Maybe that would wind up being going to alumni. Again, take a hard look at that. Major gifts, okay? Now, major gift campaign here, we're talking about $1 million, okay? So take a look at that. You need to also planning process. You have to explain the planning process used for developing the plan. How did you come up with this plan? Who would be involved in that in your school? Parents, faculty, staff, alumni. Statement of your goals. I want to know what specifically, and again, you can alter these numbers slightly, and I'm not going to be too worried about that. But the statement of your goals. I want your financial goals. How much money are you trying to raise? And then also, what is your goal in terms of participation? We always want 100%, but what do you think is realistic for your school? Timetable for events and mailings, anticipated costs. You're estimating this. Be sure the numbers match your budget. That's the main thing. All the material you're putting in this advancement plan must show up in both your general narrative comments, as well as it must show up in the template where you're talking about sources of revenue and expenses. Staffing need to accomplish it. Maybe you need to hire somebody else. Selection process for personal solicitations. Methods for evaluating. How are you going to evaluate whether your advancement plan is really working or not? That's really critical. So again, there are 3 parts to this. Okay, now, what I'd like to do now is just give you an idea briefly. These, in terms of the grading, this is what your grade summary sheet will look like. Budget narrative and budget documents. All of these things have values assigned to them, and they're reflective of the outline that I just discussed. Okay? Failure to do that will wind up meaning, in all cases, it's basically a 1-point deduction. Again, narrative and the budget, okay, that is 20 points out of the 30. The advancement plan is 10 out of the 30. And what you'll get from me at the end is you'll be given a point. Now, maybe you didn't do the rationale for your tuition rates, then you'll see that as a 0. And then as a result, this will be 19. And then I'll put comments down here specifically about your project. So every student will wind up getting this about, hopefully within 3 to 4 days, probably about 3 days, if not sooner, of submission of your final project. All right? So there's a lot going on. It is due no later than May 7th at 11:59 p.m. Please, if you have any questions or concerns about the final project, please email me, please text me, or call me. If you want to FaceTime with me, we can also do that. But please, if you have any questions, make sure that you get those answered before you submit your project to me. With that in mind, again, I appreciate all the effort that you put into this course, and please let me know if there are any questions. Thanks and have a great day.